want to mention it here. And I used to, I get surprised how come that these guys are paying me so much, like, you know. So, and I am attached to the Political Cartoonists Association, and they used to, there are about 780 political cartoonists, especially in United States. So I became number 3, you know. So even my political cartoons been appeared in London Financial Times for the first time, for that paper, you know, from Hong Kong. And the people whom I criticized became my friends, like Lord Chris Patten, the last governor of Hong Kong. Paul knows that he became very friendly with me, and today also that he is, you know, he talks to me, and you know, things like that. I mean, I like the Western culture very much, because they admire the kind of work, whether it's criticisms, or whether it's something to do with you know, you're praising him or praising the whole bunch of crooks or whoever, you know. So this is a funny game, but of course a lot of risks are there, to be frank with you. You know, risks, threats, all kinds of stuff, but it's life. So the life is full of.
It's the same with anything. I'm sure even in the case of your interests in the duckling, I'm sure there are risks in that as well. So it's perfectly, you know, normal to have risks in anything that you do.
But what Sarah really achieves is he makes people laugh, and I think
Is that so?
I think that if we all had a commitment every day, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to make 10 people laugh for the day, the world would be a better place. There's a lot of miserable people around, and laughter is the best medicine. It's good for health
Laughter
as
is the
well.
best medicine. I agree with him, because you know, we are here in this world for a very short period. So why we make our lives miserable, you know? So I ask the viewers to sort of go through my website, as well as the Fun World magazine, which is coming up in August, and also that I work with Paul as a creative director, and even for the Junk, you know, and done a lot of marvelous things, and he had done a lot of good things for me, you know, and I appreciate. I mean, the backing of the Westerners is still there. The backing from my own people, it's not there. So I pinpointed these many times in talk shows, like, you know, I mean, it's crazy. I think the Western culture, you know, the discriminations come from our people, not from the Western culture. You know, I don't agree. Anybody say, hey, Suddha fellows is discriminating you. No, they are the people who push me up, not my own people. So I should say that, and I regret. And so that's why I'm giving an opportunity for writers, the artists, the political cartoonists, to come forward and to contribute for this Fun World magazine, which I'll be launching it as a sort of a new theme. So it will be like the Mad magazine, which has a circulation of 2 million over copies. So I just want to be those fellows, go forward and to say, hey, a Sri Lankan from it's a third world country, we have a kind of an international magazine. This is the very first international magazine from a Sri Lankan point of view. So I have done quite a lot. Say about I've sold over 100,000 copies in the United States alone. You know, for
and
the
it's good to actually bring in, you know, upcoming talented young writers or caricaturists out the, you know, open and introduce them to the world. And you, Mr. Watts, are doing that. You know, you are spearheading this new publishing sort of initiative where you're encouraging writers who have a lot to say about their travels across the world to write and, you know, come up with a collection of lovely stories.
Yes, that's correct. And the first book that we'll release in around September will have about I think 24 contributors from around the world, telling stories about what it's like to be an expat, what it's like to live abroad. The extension of and that concept will roll out. Then the extension of that will be to do books like what is it like to be an expat, expats in Sri Lanka. And then other books will be like expats abroad. What's it like to be from Sri Lanka and go and live in Saudi? What's it like to go and live in Hong Kong? As opposed to what's it like to go and live in America? So vastly different. And people have family stories, but these things are not condensed enough. And that will give a lot of opportunity to young up-and-coming journalists in that as well. So that's the idea. And so it's very exciting, and the feedback that we have so far is just overwhelming. Overwhelming. A lot of talent out there. A lot of talent out there, but they need some help, and they need a vehicle to be able to do that. And that's what we're going to do.
And you yourself, you told me before the show that you've traveled to many countries, around 50 countries. But what made you really settle down in Hong Kong itself?
Well, I'm not really settled down in Hong Kong. I normally have various offices around the world and various apartments. So I kind of live around. In fact, I've just we had an apartment in Shanghai for 8 years, with business in China, and an office in London. You know, all over the place. So hence I travel extensively. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I feel you like Philippines very much.
No, not overly. But we always have an office in Hong Kong, and the reason for that is to have a base.
And Hong Kong is your base, sort of.
In Asia.
Yeah.
The two most credible places to have a base is it's either Singapore or Hong Kong, and now coming up to Shanghai, which is the future growth of the world. So to run an international business, you need one of those two addresses or both, and that's very helpful for the credibility of a business going forward. Yeah.
So this time I insisted him to visit Colombo, which is an exciting place. What do you say?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Well, I've been. This is my third time here, but I was pretty shocked yesterday to get to. I flew out of Singapore, and they've just brought in a new rule and law here that expats need visas to come here, and they weren't going to let us on the plane. There's a whole heap of it. Then they took us into a room, and we had to go online, and it was just a mess. They held up the airplane for us, luckily, and they got us on. And then we got to this end, and it didn't seem like it was necessary at all. So, but the travel agents don't know about this. When you book online, they don't know about it. Very inconvenient for people coming here. And particularly when you're a business traveller, you've got meetings to attend, and that happens. Not good. It needs a bit of publicity.
Okay.
So there are little things to be adjusted. I'm saying no.
Yeah, well, I
But
just,
see
I
these
just make the
beautiful
point
people. See our lady.
No,
over
but
there.
Yes,
definitely,
tourists,
I mean, Sri Lanka too is quickly, there's rapid development taking place. The country looks very different from what it was
Exactly.
during the period of the conflict.
Sure.
Now, if someone comes back after, let's say, 5 or 6 years, it's completely changed. The landscape has changed, and everything
Sorry.
around you has changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was impressed with the airport.
Yeah. So we're going for another short commercial break. We'll be right back on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sport. We've just got a few minutes to go before we wrap up the show for this morning. But before we go, I just need to ask 2 quick questions from our guests this morning, Mr. Sara Senemiratne and Mr. Paul Watt. Mr. Senemiratne, now you were saying, talking about your magazines and asking people to check your magazines out. Would you like to give out information how they can do that?
Yeah, actually they can go through my website. It is www.sarasene, S-A-R-A-S-E-N-E, one word, sarasene.com. So if you want to have a link, if you want to contribute, and if you want to link with Paul Watt and his the new publishing project, you could go through me and just switch on to this www.sarasene.com, and you can see some of the kind of work that I do and the future work as well.
Okay.
So that is going to be a kind of a weekly kind of a new concept which is coming up. So every week you could entertain yourself by looking at this particular web page.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Watt, you also want to talk briefly about the other work you're doing in Sri Lanka, which is about diabetes. And
yes, we're bringing to Sri Lanka a new product for diabetes. It is an astonishing product out of Australia, put together by an Australian company that I'm associated with, and we'll be appointing distributors for that. So you'll be hearing a lot more about that, a lot. So that's an exciting thing that'll contribute to the health of a lot of people.
Definitely. So as I said at the beginning of this show, these two gentlemen are a mixed bag of things, and at the conclusion of today's interview, I'm sure all our viewers out there would come to the same, conclusion that I had when I started the show. So thank you very much, Mr. Sarasene Wiratne and Mr. Paul Watt, for joining us this morning. It was a great show, and I'm sure your work must have inspired a lot of people out there. And yes, so before we conclude, we'll be leaving you with a few pictures of Prince William's 30th birthday, and how he's grown up into a really dashing young man who is second in line to the British throne. So thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Sri Lanka. We'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We're not doing any of the bits.